now and always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. But Joel, will you be seated? Welcome.
The wise lady and the lady that I look up to says, "May the thoughts of my mind and the words from my mouth speak only the truth." I would like to thank the clergy and the congregation of St. George's for inviting me to come up here during Scout Guide Week. I hold a couple roles here. As most of you know, I've been a leader here at St. George's for 22 years, and I have now been moved up to the position of Area Commissioner for St. Catharines. I was asked to do a reflection of my time here at St. George's as the Scout leader, and some of the history and where Scouting is going to go in St. Catharines in the next bunch of years. When I was 7, I joined the Cubs. That's 7 to 10-year-olds. I used to join at Grantham United Church, and we moved on to the Scouts when I was 10. There I met 2 leaders. One was an SIT, a Scouter in Training, named Grant Cornelius, and another man named Kevin Cosby, and he was an assistant leader there. I moved on to Ventures, that's the 15 to 18-year-old section, where we learned quite a bit about camping and hiking, and we had a lot of fun. Scouting's been a part of my life ever since. Assistant leader, we moved on. I took a couple years off, I got hired in North York, came back, and they said, "Joel, how would you like to sit on district council?" Which sounded like a lot of fun. You know, it's a promotion, and they plopped you behind a desk, and well, you had to do all the stuff behind the scenes that really go unnoticed, and it's not the funnest position. There's probably many of you that know what I'm talking about here. But the Scouting bug when I was 13, with meeting Kevin and Grant, is very contagious, and I must have got it because here I am many years later, and still in Scouting. After I left the district council, I could have just joined another group, but I said, no, I'm going to open up a Scout group here at my own church. I had the support of the clergy. It was Archbishop Barry Hallwell. I had his son, and we've gone from there. We had 6 youth. 6 then became 10, and then 12 the following year. So there's a Cub pack and a Scout troop, and we move forward. And I brought co-ed Scouting to St. George's, much to the demise of the Cub leaders. And at the end of the year, they walked out. They closed the group up, and they said, "We're not doing it anymore." A year later, we opened up the Cub group. We found a couple good leaders, and we turned this St. George's, 6 St. George's, into the biggest co-ed Scouting and Cub group in St. Catharines. So I was very, very happy with our youth and fellow leaders. The one good thing about having a co-ed Scout group is it's fantastic for going out and recruiting members, because the boys and their competitive nature will never allow more girls to be in the troop than the boys. And that year we had 25, 13 boys and 12 girls. My 10-year-old girls and 11-year-old girls could out-camp the boys every single time. The campsite was much cleaner, it smelled better, much neater, much neater. And we continued from there. As I look back, many good things came from the Scouts. Alyssa Cornelius, who never wanted to be a Scout, became a fantastic Scouter in training, and she made the co-ed side, the girls side allowed each one of my scouts and cubs to make sure that they were allowed to speak and be heard. They could argue with their fellows, but I would never let them disrespect another scout. And if they did, then the wrath of Scouter Joel was coming down and saying, clean it up, you can argue, but you can't, you don't mean it to each other. I tried it even today, 22 years later, and still we try to instill this on the youth. A tight-knit bond was made. Camps, they just formed a tight-knit group, and it's fantastic. Like all good things, the reins have to be passed to new leaders, and Scouter John came along to pass on his words of wisdom to the youth. We then needed feeder groups for the Scouts. We used to have 3 groups: St. Thomas Church, Welland Avenue United, and St. George's, to feed the strong Scout group here in St. George's. We've now lost Welland Avenue United Church, and we needed a stronger Cub group. So the leaders, Kevin Cosby and Grant Cornelius, my leaders, came to me, and the 3 of us opened up a group here at St. George's, a stronger Cub group that started out with 3, went to 6, and now we currently have 9. It's growing. Scouting in St. Catharines is growing. And 36 years ago, when I met these 2 fine individuals, I didn't realize how much of a friendship was going to be made. We were at each other's wedding parties. Grant's kids are my god kids. And the friendships and the bonds are very strong. Scouting has created friendships that will last forever. But what does the church do for the Cubs and Scouts, and what does the Cubs and Scouts do in return? You see us every Monday night if you happen to be in the area, and you, the congregation, is sort of my way of judging how well we're doing as leaders, because you'll see us at bazaars and other events doing parking. The Christmas bazaar is always our fun because you shove us outside and we pull up the snowbank, and then we come in and get hot chocolate, feed the kids. We'll stay quiet, it's great. But then the judging comes through. Many of you come up to me and say, Joel, your Cubs and Scouts are the most well-mannered and polite youth I have ever seen. And I'm thinking back to Monday now, when those weren't the same youth that were running around the hall screaming and throwing balls around the gym. It's a lot of fun, but thank you very much for showing me that whatever we're doing okay. The congregation at St. George's Church has been here in many other ways too. We've never looked for a free handout, but you've always been there for us, whether it's the hall, whether it's storage of our equipment. And many clergy have helped us in things like Religion and Life Badge. Ken and John Hesketh was ran the Care Corps for 8 jamborees, and I see Reverend Paul out there who went to Scouts, I believe it was, with my father at Grace Church, if I remember correctly. I see Jim Stredwick out there, and George Novus is over there as well, who used to be leaders here at the Cubs 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little farther, when they had would take the kids out to camp and task force. Reverend Val, you helped us out, and you may not even know that you helped us out, but you took a bus load or a plane load of congregation to Jerusalem, which allowed 36 husbands to be here alone. We had a spaghetti dinner. 36 husbands came to our spaghetti dinner. I think we were one of the most successful spaghetti dinners that this church has ever had. Please let us know when you're going again. We've had past members named Roger Naylor, who was the district commissioner of scouting many years ago. St. George's has created a very strong tradition of youth, of leaders here at St. George's, and we thank you. Other people, I see Pat McLean out there. Pat McLean, you might not know it, but what we do is, what started off as a recycling bag. We collected pop cans. And then, once we received about 1,000 of them, we took them down to Sam Alstein's, got some money, and they said, here you go, we'll take the pop cans, here's your money. And I bought some badges and gave the kids a recycling badge. Well, as soon as they said, bring in pop cans, we'll give you money, we continued on, and that's got for about 12 years. We haven't had to purchase or ask for a handout to purchase tents, the money for, or receive money from you for equipment, for tents for over 12 years. And we thank you very much. Every 2 weeks, I receive a call from Pat McLean that says, hi Joel, my apartment building has collected 10 more bags for you. Come down and get them off my balcony. Thank you very much. Gene Allen Parker, in the first year, came up and said, Joel, is there anything that I can do for you? And I said, I have one youth that cannot afford to go to camp. Magically, a check was delivered about 2 weeks later, and that youth attended camp. And it's these little things that go unnoticed that I want to thank you for. And it's much, much appreciated. We've never turned a kid away from camp that wanted to go to camp. We've never been in the past. We don't plan to do this in the future. A few things that I bring greetings from St. Catherine's. St. Catherine's area. I said scouting was growing in St. Catherine's. We belong to the Battlefields District, Brantford, Hamilton's, Niagara region. There's one city in all of that town that has got over 100% retention in youth volunteers in the combined total, and that's here in St. Catharines. St. Catharines Scouting in St. Catharines is growing. We're moving forward, and I hope that you can pass on to youth leaders that hop on board. We're going to make this a bigger and better group here and across the city. In the fall, we have noticed that they're dropping the ball on the 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old adventures. And over to my right, Pat Scout, who's now the area youth commissioner, is going to start up a scuba diving program, 2 or 3 days where we take the 13, 14, the senior scouts and the adventurers scuba diving. This is success for one rock climbing. Repellent. John, if you'd like to come, we have a harness that'll fit. We've noticed that in the fall, we plan on opening a venture company possibly here at St. George's, but in the fall, we are going to be looking for the 5 to 7-year-old beavers and opening up a group on Monday nights. So if anybody's interested in being a beaver leader, I can't do it because those little guys scare the heck out of me. They're packed. They get you when you're not looking. But they're fantastic little guys. I like the kids that are 10 to 14 year old. That's for the point. I'm very proud of each one of my Cubs and Scouts. I see our Cubs and Scouts. We wear the red and the black, and when we invest in these youth, it's almost like a little bit of pride goes into it. They've never disrespected the church. They've always done very well. They've always served us proud. Congratulations to all of you. And success, I was driving here and I thought of the following. How have I done over the last 22 years of scouting here at St. George's? Have we been successful? Have I done a good job? And the success is starting to show now with the youth that are now becoming parents. We've had one youth that drives a dump truck about the size of my house in the Alberta oil mines. I met one scout that is 27 now and flies for air ambulance in Lear jets, the long-distance patient transfers. One young lady received her gold double Duke of Edinburgh Award just 2 weeks ago. We had one person that was a juvenile fire setter to join our group. He is now successful, and he is in the Canadian Navy. I think the top it off the most was when one scout came back to us. He's now 23, and he came up to Scouter Corey and myself. We were both firefighters, and he said, "I just became a Mississauga firefighter, and it was a direct impact from you being a scout leader and you certainly hope that everybody here wearing the red shirts and the green shirts and the gray shirts, and anybody in scouting and guiding, that you enjoy every single minute of it. It's meant the world to me, and I hope it means the world to you.
Thank you. So, you may think now, what is Val going to talk about? How do we marry, if you will, this first Sunday in Lent and what we've heard from Joel about scouting? It may surprise you to know that I was a Girl Guide. And I remember those days fondly. I also remember thinking, why do we have to earn all these badges? But as I got older, I realized how beneficial those teachings were and those learnings. Now, one of the badges, I can't remember what it's called now, it was a couple of years ago, but we had to go on a hike, no leaders, we had to be able to start a fire, and we had to be able to cook ourselves something to eat. Some kind of survival, if you will. And, you know, being youth, we could do anything. We ended up baking potatoes in our fire. It took us a few hours, but we managed, and we also managed to eat them. It certainly was not the wilderness experience of Jesus. However, we learned a lot about ourselves and how we truly could survive if we needed to on our own. But the learning was the best thing, was the learning. And you know, Joel, you talked about leaders. I can still tell you the names of my leaders. Leaders are very influential in our lives. And Jesus leads us. Jesus leads us. Now, like I said, certainly our experience wasn't the wilderness experience of Jesus. We didn't have the wild animals and the angels caring for us, although I'm sure the angels were there. We survived the baked potatoes. So we enter this time of Lent looking at Jesus in the wilderness for 40 days. In this time of Lent, we're encouraged to learn, to grow, to study, to meditate, and to work on our relationship with God. Where is it that God calls us to be? What experiences in our lives have been those wilderness experiences? I said at 8 o'clock, we sometimes separate our experiences in the sense of everything good that happens to us comes from God, and everything negative comes from evil. However, what we heard this morning was Jesus being drove by the Spirit into the wilderness. Those wilderness experiences have ways of teaching us lessons we may not want to learn at the time, but when we reflect upon them, we realize how beneficial they have been in our lives. I don't have an author for this. I remember this from years ago, and I just Googled, I asked for strength. and I found it on the internet. But I'd like you to think about this. I asked for strength, and God gave me difficulties to make me strong. I asked for wisdom, and God gave me problems to solve. I asked for prosperity, and God gave me brawn and brains to work. I asked for courage, and God gave me dangers to overcome. I asked for patience, and God placed me in situations where I was forced to wait. I asked for love, and God gave me troubled people to help. I asked for favors, and God gave me opportunities. I asked for everything so I could enjoy life. Instead, God gave me life so I could enjoy everything. I received nothing I wanted or asked for. I received everything I needed. And I think as much as we would like our lives to be all rosy, it's in those wilderness times or those difficult times that we grow and learn the most. We learn from our difficulties. We learn from our grief. We learn when we serve others. Most of all, we learn how to love because we were first loved. We give thanks to God for all of that. The mountaintop experiences and the valleys where we're forced to grow and survive and learn. Most of all, we give thanks to God for the gift of love that we can so freely share with others. For that I say thanks be to God.